Hi, welcome to Parliament Chocolate. We're here in beautiful downtown Redlands at one of the first bean-to-bar chocolate factories in Southern California. Inside, we're going to explain a little bit of the process of what bean-to-bar chocolate is and why it's so important to understand the chocolate making process. So come on inside and thank you very much. We are here at Parliament Chocolate, and like I said, this is probably one of the smallest chocolate factories in the world. We're at a small little building, 860 square foot chocolate factory, Willy Wonka-ish mentality. I know that sounds weird, but like I said, we actually make that chocolate from the bean to the actual chocolate bars. So come on in and I'll show you a little bit of the process. This here is cacao beans, and we actually start with this product and turn it into an actual chocolate bar. What's so important about our company is we actually fly down to Central and South America and meet with farmers and do what's called direct trade and have a direct trade relationship. What that means is I actually want to create a relationship and know exactly where my product is coming from, which is these cacao beans. In that retrospect, you're actually respecting the farmer and respecting the product that you're working with. So it's extremely important to know every aspect of what's going on, from actually making the chocolate and actually sourcing the chocolate and the cacao beans. So like I said, I fly down usually to Central or South America or Southeast Asia once to twice a quarter and meet with these different farmers from different backgrounds, different lives, and try to work with them on a direct relationship and create a relationship, which is not done enough in the food industry and should be done more often. Through the process of actually making chocolate, when we bring up these cacao beans, we usually bring them up in huge, huge sacks, anywhere from 60 to 70 kilos in each sack, which is about 120 pounds, so quite a bit. We try to bring up anywhere from 1 metric ton to 3 to 5 metric tons, and we work with other chocolate makers, so just helps sourcing and actually connectivity between all of us working together. So starting in that process, we actually take these beans and we roast them. So just like you would roast coffee, we have these things called big drum roasters, and we throw these beans in those drums, which is a direct heat method. So we actually roast 2 different ways because it creates different profiles. So we're actually designing this chocolate with unique profiles and unique characteristics based around the terroir, or what's going on at the farm. So we want to actually capture the flavors of these beans and what is going on at those farms. So we want to bring those back up, and we don't roast them to a degree to where we want to burn off those flavors. And in that process, the lower heat, we're actually controlling the flavors as much as possible, and antioxidant content and health benefits of it. So if we over roast it, then you lose all those benefits and you have these carcinogens and carbon. And so we try to capture those flavors as much as possible. So our next process, after we do that cracking and winnowing and separate that shell from the nib, we take those cacao nibs and we do what's called liquoring. It sounds like there's an alcoholic assumption that alcohol is actually applied, where it has nothing to do with alcohol. Liquoring is actually where you take the nib and you turn it from a solid state to a liquid state. What that means is, if you've ever seen peanuts and turn them into peanut butter, it goes from a solid to a liquid peanut butter state. So fundamentally, that's literally what we're doing. We're taking those cacao nibs and we're turning them pretty much into that peanut buttery form, that liquidy form. So after that process, then we move on to another process. So quite a bit of processes when it comes to actually chocolate making and turning your actual cacao bean into a finished chocolate bar. So it takes a lot of steps. So after that liquoring process, like I said, where we actually take the bean, those nibs, and turn them to a liquid state, we throw them into these huge machines right here. So these are called our melangers or refiners. What these do is they actually take that peanut buttery, so if you actually ate that sort of structure of that liquor, then you'll have this really gritty consistency. And truthfully, chocolate in that gritty state, it's not very good. It's not. It's very astringent. There's also different types of acids in it that need to get burnt out. So that's where this refining process happens. So we actually take that liquor and throw it into these big machines. These can hold anywhere from 100 pounds to 65 pounds. So what's actually in here is a big granite base and then big granite wheels. And so what these granite wheels are doing over a period of actually 2 to 5 days, depending on ambient temperature outside, it literally sits in this machine and doesn't stop moving for 2 to 5 days. So it's literally, if you come on over here, you can actually see, it's actually breaking down the structure. So this is where we actually add our sugar as well. So this is where, if you've ever heard of the percentage of a chocolate bar, so 70% chocolate bar, 40% chocolate bar, that percentage of chocolate bar is that percentage of how much chocolate's in your chocolate bar. So we only make 70% chocolate bars to 30% sugar. So 70% cacao or chocolate to 30% sugar. We don't add any other binders like soy lecithin or cocoa butter or other flavoring agents. Like I said, we're trying to capture that flavor of the chocolate and from the source. So when you actually add it to these machines with these big granite wheels, it's breaking down that structure quite a bit. And over a period of time, each one of these granite wheels weighs anywhere from 20 pounds to 30 pounds, depending on what type of machine you have. And so it's breaking down that structure and breaking down and also producing, so as it turns, producing friction. So that friction burns off those volatile acids that are bitter, astringent, and not very good in flavor. So we want to burn off those acids, and over that period of time, it breaks it down. So as soon as that's done, we do what's called blocking, and we'll actually pour the chocolate out into molds and do what's called blocking in about 8 to 9 pound blocks. So I will show you that next. Alright, so next process, like I said, we do blocking. And what that means is we actually take the chocolate and put it into huge molds, like I said, 8 to 9 pound blocks. So this is a big block of chocolate here. It's called an untemperature couverture block. You can see how it's not crystallized and not connected perfectly. So this is some pretty good stuff right here. So what we have to do in the process after that is called tempering the chocolate. So we actually take this big block and we throw it into what's called a tempering machine. So I'll explain that process next. Come on over here. So the process after we actually do the blocking, we actually take those chunks of chocolate and we throw it into the machine. What this machine does is it actually takes all that chocolate and remelts it down. And what we're trying to do is melt it down and connect what are called beta crystals. What are beta crystals? So beta crystals are crystals that are in the chocolate that are actually very unstable. Fat crystals and sugar crystals that we actually have to bind together. So we're actually looking for the what's called beta 5. So there's beta 1 through 6, and beta 5 is that perfect temper. So if you've ever heard of that word tempered chocolate or tempering chocolate, we're trying to sort of connect it like a puzzle, so that in that first image when you saw the block chocolate, you saw how unstable it was and how it can actually, you touch it by hand, it melts extremely easily, and then if it was in a bar form at that point, it would just snap apart and sort of become brittle in your hand. So we're actually wanting to design it so that it's got a nice snap to it, so that when you bite onto it, it's got this nice mouthfeel, and then it also has a nice sheen and shiny look. So it doesn't look like it sort of is actually moldy at that point, which it's not mold. It's just, like I said, that sort of instability of its crystals not being connected correctly. So what this machine does is it's actually melting it down to about I would say about anywhere from 110 to 120 Fahrenheit. So when we melt it down to about 115, 120 Fahrenheit, we're actually bringing it back down to a very cool temperature rapidly. So what that's doing is it's isolating those crystals, those beta crystals, and connecting them together. And so we actually have these molds right here. So these are our actual chocolate molds, and there's actually a nozzle. So unfortunately the machine's not on right now, but there's a nozzle, so it runs through the whole machine. All the chocolate runs through the machine and then comes out of this nozzle right here. So as it's pouring out, we actually take it and disperse it onto the molds. After we disperse it onto the molds, we'll scrape it off back inside, and then we'll turn on this machine. What this machine does is it actually vibrates. So what we're doing right here is we're actually vibrating out all the bubbles that are inside. So you have this nice, crisp, very nice sheen bar. So you don't have those air bubbles inside the bar. So after we actually get those air bubbles out, we take this guy, which is our freezer, and we throw it in here to make sure that the ambient temp is going to not distraught and destroy what we tried to do in that crystallization process. So after it's set, you have that solid chocolate bar, then we actually hand wrap all of our chocolate bars. So here is our final product. We are actually wrap anywhere from, I would say, 100 to 150 individual chocolate bars a day, and then we send them throughout all of the world. So United States, Canada, England, Japan, and then people can enjoy our single origin, what we call single origin chocolate, direct sourced directly from the farmer, and people can enjoy it. Thank you for watching the video.